And we start with apologies for absence.
We have apologies, Mr Mayor, from Councillors Fay and Moody.
Thank you. And then declarations of interest. When it comes to going through the minutes of the last BNP committee and one of the DMNL committees, I will make personal declarations of interest and I will withdraw from the room for those items. Does anyone else have any declarations of interest? Councillor Mrs Mann.
No, I don't have a declaration of interest, but I noticed that I didn't have a copy of one of the DML meetings. I wondered if Councillor Smith, you would present the first set.
Yes, I wasn't there.
Was this the 21st of
Not
November?
the 14th, but the one that you were there for, that you led.
Yeah. I don't think I've got it here with me now.
Ah,
I have a copy of it.
okay. If you have a copy, I will. Can I borrow yours?
Okay. Councillor Barry-Smith.
Declaration of interest on item 7, budget policy grants panel. I'm a trustee at the museum.
Thank you. Councillor Harry-Smith.
Declaration of interest, Mr Mayor. I refer to item 8 on our agenda, Room 2, the minutes of the Development Management and Licensing Committee of the 14th of December last year. I declare an interest in both the change of use and listed building consent at 28 West Street, the applicant being my son-in-law.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Mann.
Declare an interest. I worked at Citizens Advice Bureau.
Okay.
So the grants panel item as well, I would need to withdraw.
Thank you. Any more for any more? Right. Minutes of council meeting. Confirm the minutes of the meeting of Tuesday the 22nd of November. Are you all happy that it's an accurate reflection of what took place?
Yeah, great.
Okay, all in favour? Thank you very much. And item B, are there any matters arising not otherwise covered in today's agenda? I'll take that as a no. Item 4, public representations and questions. As far as I'm aware, there are none. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So we move into items requiring a decision, and the big one. Yes?
Can I just ask a question about that? Because since we've been doing this by having letters, sent in so many days, etc., I think we've only had one or two if we're lucky, I can only think of one, questions that have come in. And I feel that the public and, our residents are not getting a way to able just come in like they used to before. And I'm not sure, that we can wholly say that we're representing some of our residents when they don't get a say. They probably have it on Facebook, but they don't actually manage to get it to the town council. And sometimes it's even thanks, for things town council have done. I wonder, before we get to May and with things going on, that maybe we should look at this policy again and see if we need to change it a little bit to make it more accessible, that somebody doesn't have to think of something 2 weeks before or however many days it is.
Thank you. Do any other members have anything to comment? Yes, Councillor Squires.
Yeah, I'm very conscious about the total lack and absence of the public here for our meeting. I personally circulate 119 members of the public about these meetings with the agenda, and there is still very little response. So I have some consideration to rethink how we meet our public in the performance of our duties. Really, something which is an exercise I would like to think we engage with.
Councillor Hutton.
Completely agree. We have Facebook, we have letters in the paper, we have people talking to us all the time about what's going on or ideas they've got. And we never see them. I mean, I've been here now about 6 years. I think I can think of one occasion when the lady came about Pride. It was about the only time we actually see them out in the public actually talking. And it was very interesting and useful. So yes, and that could be done sooner rather than later.
Just a thought, but given that we've only got 4 months left of this council, effectively, is it something that could be discussed, but with the final decision to be deferred to the new council? Councillor Mrs Mann?
I just wanted to mention that it's not 2 weeks, that you have to do it in advance. So it's actually quite a bit shorter. I think it's 24 hours. So it's not a very onerous. It is, actually. Yeah. It is 24 hours. We wrote the policy at the beginning of this term. And the reason it was instituted in this way, I'd just like to remind everyone, is that prior to this, any representations by the public sat outside the meeting, which meant that they weren't minuted and they didn't show up in the public record. So you could have someone come and make a very passionate speech indeed, but have no record of it and have no record of what they asked the council to do and have no formal response that was clear. And therefore, at the time when we first considered this, and I think it was Councillor Smith and a few others, I can't remember who was on the Standing Orders Committee at the time, but we felt it was important to move that public representation into the meeting so that it could be minuted, so that there was a record of who came to speak to the council. That doesn't mean that we can't have both. An informal type of way to address the council as well as a formal way if people would prefer. So that would be my suggestion if you move forward. But I just wanted to reiterate that the reason that it's here on the agenda is to allow for something like the conversation that happened over the Pride flag to happen and to be minuted, so that we have a record of those approaches rather than having it sit outside the meeting.
It sounds to me as though there is an appetite to look at this matter again, and perhaps if I could ask the clerk for his advice as to how we might take this forward, given this timing in the civic cycle.
I think it very much depends on whether it's something you wish to look at in isolation or as part of a wider review of your standing orders and procedural arrangements for meetings, Mr. Mayor. Clearly, it will be a matter for the new council to review at an early stage both its general standing orders as well as its financial regulations and the other governing documents which affect the council. So within the first 12 months of the council's life, it will need to look at those in order to assess whether or not they continue to be fit for purpose for the composition and the aspirations and expectations of that particular council. So I think you're right that any final decision should be made then, whether or not there are areas such as this or indeed other areas where you wish to express a preliminary view to the new council, whether you would wish them to start with a clean slate, if you like, and come to their own views, is very much a political decision for members, I think, as to how you proceed. I think the key thing, though, is that that new council will need to make its own decisions around what it wants, and I think it probably would be inappropriate to make a decision now which sought to change policy on this or indeed anything else unless it was imperative given the proximity of the elections. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Where does that lead us?
I think we delay it. I think, as somebody pointed out, we all started thinking about elections in 2 months' time. So I think really we've got so many members missing now, there's people not here, there's people who resigned. I think we need it. But it's put it on the list of one of the things that we start in the next council straight away, something to think about. I mean, it matters, because just because someone might not be here next time, it doesn't mean that we've not expressed views
Sure.
and it's important.
Does anyone wish to express a contrary view? Sounds very reasonable to me. Now, obviously, this isn't an agendaed item, so we're not in a position to make a decision as such. But if that is the feeling around the table, then I think we should go in that direction. Leslie.
Clarify whether, can I just clarify whether people have to be present if they want to ask a question? so they can ask a question.
Town Clerk?
In the past, people have been present when they've asked the question because it is part of their opportunity to actually engage with the council, and what we have done in the past is also where they've been unexpectedly unable to attend is we've afforded the opportunity for the question to then be deferred to a following meeting of the council. We haven't had a situation arise yet where someone has wished to raise the question and not to attend and actually address it. Clearly, if that situation arose, depending on the circumstances, we would discuss it with the Mayor and Deputy Mayor at the time as to whether or not it was appropriate to proceed on that basis. And that also partly ties into what the nature of the question is and the extent to which it actually links to responsibilities that the parish council, town council in our case, actually does have.
Ursula, and this is the last question I'll take on this issue.
Sorry, I just want to clarify that because I believe we did have that exact situation already, and that the policy was written in a way that meant that you only had to submit a written submission and you'd get a written answer. And that was to do with plastic-free Tavistock, I think was the initial question that came in under the new policy. And that individual didn't address the council, they just asked the question and it was read to the council and then we responded in writing.
Okay. Thank you. I don't want to go any further down the rabbit hole for what amounts to an unagendered discussion. It's now on the radar to be looked at again by the new council, and I'm sure that will happen. Okay, thank you. Moving on then. Item 5, council budget and precept. And we are asked to agree two policies, A and B. Members have had an opportunity to direct any particular questions they may have to the clerk. Does anyone have any comments or questions to raise at this point? Councillor Harry Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you can see, this this item arises at minute 293. But minute 293 is the end result of many months of work by our officers and stage responses at several meetings of budget and policy and this council. I do, however, want to respond to two matters which have been aired to me personally and on social media. I'm therefore appreciative that this meeting is held with the opportunity for members of the public and the press to be present and is also being live streamed. First point I wish to address is that this council has been accused of being secretive about the level of the rise in the precept. Nothing can be further from the truth, Mr. Mayor. And I can witness this by the fact that in the papers that went to the November meeting of Budget and Policy, included under the heading of corporate management, that the current precept was 852,554 and the budget for the next financial year was 935,678. And you do not have to be a mathematical genius to work out that that is 9.75%, which is before us tonight. The second point I address in two parts. The first is that we do not fund THT. What we fund are the necessary running costs of the Guildhall Gateway Centre. Considering the limitations in what that all of us members have budgeted for next year, I think it's wise to respond to the criticism that when asked in December what the budget was for the necessary running costs of the Guildhall Gateway Centre, a member of this authority supposedly responded by stating it was £35,000. I cannot accept that a member would respond in that way. It has been clear, again since November, that we have in our budget for the necessary running costs of the Guildhall Gateway Centre £134,569. And that is for the next financial year, next council year. It's likely that the year following the requirement could be lower, and it's not until the year after that that the council agreed a £35,000 limit could be exercised. Mr Mayor, we are setting the budget for a new council elected in May. I request that under Standing Order 3, subsection S, that the vote be a recorded vote. I make the request in line with the general standing orders before you move to another item.
I could have the advice of the town clerk, please.
Yes, any member may move that it be a recorded vote, and I must confess, I haven't got my standing orders here, so I just need to do a quick double check as to whether, if you will excuse me a moment, as to whether or not we need to take a vote on that, or the request itself is sufficient in and of itself. I won't be a moment.
The standing order states that the request can be made by a member that the vote be taken as due.
So it doesn't require a further vote. If you're happy to accept Councillor Smith's explanation, he's had more recent check on that than I have, then it will be done by recorded vote.
Yes, I'm happy to accept Councillor Smith's view. This is in two parts, A and B, and I suggest we take them separately. So, for the benefit of the press and anyone who may be watching on screening, I will read them out in full. So, A, schedule of fees and charges 2023 to 24 and accompanying matters as recommended by the Budget and Policy Committee, minute number 293, Roman 2, refers. Move. Seconder? All those in favour, please show. Take names.
I think this is going to be by way of a roll call, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
So I'll just let my... Have you finished your list?
Yes.
Yeah, right. So if I may then, Councillor Smith.
4.
Councillor Johnson.
4.
Councillor Crawford.
4.
Councillor Hutton.
4.
Councillor Williamson.
4.
Councillor Lewis.
4.
Councillor Squire.
4.
Councillor Venning.
4.
Councillor Pears.
4.
Councillor Smith.
4.
Councillor Mann.
4.
Councillor Ewings.
4.
Councillor Ward.
4.
Thank you.
Item B. The draft budget and precept for Tavistock Town Council for 2023-24, as set out in the report, and also incorporating the savings, assumptions and projections as previously submitted to, endorsed by Council. The accompanying precept being in the sum of £968,000, 870, representing an increase of 9.75%, or 34.87 pence per week for a Band D equivalent property. Minute number 293, Roman 1, refers.
Councillor Smith.
4.
Councillor Johnson.
4.
Councillor Crawford.
Yes.
Councillor Hutton.
4.
Councillor Williamson.
4.
Councillor Lewis. Councillor Squire.
4.
Councillor Venning.
4.
Councillor Pears.
4.
Councillor Smith.
4.
Councillor Mann.
4.
Councillor Ewings.
4.
Councillor Ward.
4.
Both votes are carried, sir.
Thank you. In which case we move on to agenda item 6. General finance, A, schedule of payments, and B, budget monitoring report. Do any members have any comments or questions? Thank you. In which case we now move on to the budget, minutes of the Budget and Policy Committee, and at this point I will declare an interest in minute 296 relating to the Tavistock Twinning Association. When we come to that item, I will remove myself from the room, and I wonder whether I could call upon immediate past to take the chair. Would you be happy to do that, Councillor Hutton, for that item? Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I rise to present the minutes of the Budget and Policy Committee held Tuesday the 13th of December last year at 5:30 in this chamber. 290, apologies for absence. 291, confirmation of minutes. 292, declarations of interest. 293, we've just dealt with, Mr Mayor. 294, grants panel meeting. And there is a recommendation that Tasmania Town Council endorse and approve the schedule of grant payments to the community organisation as listed.
I move the motion. Do we have a seconder? All those in favour, please show.
That is carried. Can someone call? Thank you.
Mr Mayor, 295, pre-candidature local government elections for 23-24. There is a recommendation that, subject to the amendments listed above, the Council endorse the indicative pre-candidature information leaflet and approach as laid out in paragraph 2.2 of the report. Move, Mr Mayor.
Seconder? All in favour, please show.
Carried.
Thank you. And you'll note that I have undertaken to liaise with certain councillors with a view to forming an informal working group in order to try to promote the forthcoming elections and encourage people to put their candidature forward. From my recollection, and forgive me if I'm wrong, members, the members who were present at the meeting of the Budget and Policy Committee, being obviously myself and Councillor Hutton and Councillor Mrs Johnson, I think we were all willing to take part in that process. I've also had an offer from Councillor Mrs Ewings. Does anybody else wish to be involved in that process? Councillor Smith? Okay. And Councillor Mrs Mann, thank you. Well, we'll see. It might come down to how many of us are available on whatever day we draw for meeting. Does anybody not want to be involved? Okay, thank you. We've got some names, and I'll send an email round probably within the next 48 hours and see whether we can identify a date, probably for next week, because we really need to get on with it, because I imagine people will have to put in their submissions for candidature in March or early April at the latest. So we haven't got that long.
Minute 296, the Mayor's going to leave.
Bye-bye.
The indicative view of those present as to be commended to this council was that the request be endorsed. I move that indicative view.
Second. Any against it? Those in favour, please.
Carried.
Carried. We have the Mayor back in, please. Carried. Can you?
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Harry-Smith, please.
297 DALC Conference. Can I read out the recommendations first?
Please.
Recommended that the Council agree to the annual invitation being extended to other members of the Council, subject to the sharing of transport to mitigate costs, and all bookings being made via the office in advance of the event and subject to the terms of the Council's training policy. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Move that recommendation.
Thank you. Seconder, please. And did you want to say something, Councillor Ewings? Please go ahead.
I'd just like to say that I think this is a very good idea, and I think we used to do it, but from memory of when I always used to attend with the town clerk, at the annual conferences, you're often split up into, I think it's about 4 different groups. And if there's only 2 of you, you can only go to 2 of the, break-up groups. So actually to have more of you would give us better information coming forward. I know we've sat there and gone, well, which one should we go to? Which one do we think? But actually, if we could have members at all of those subgroups, that would be really good. And I think this is an excellent idea and happy to support.
Okay, thank you. So, all those in favour, please show.
Carried.
298, recommended, this is to do with the interim internal audit report, and the recommendation is that the report be received and the recommendations endorsed. Move, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Seconder, please. And all those in favour, please show.
Carried.
That brings us to the beginning of the part 2 in the B&P minutes, and we will reserve those to the second part of the meeting. Which brings us on to item 8, Development Management and Licensing Committee. Councillor Mrs Mann, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I rise to present the minutes from the Development Management Licensing Committee, Monday the 21st of November. 265, apologies for absence. 266, confirmation of minutes. 267, declarations of interest. 268, Dartmoor National Park Authority. 269, town planning issues. 270, general correspondence. 271, neighbourhood development planning. 272, urgent planning, urgent business. 273, planning decisions. And we have a recommendation at little b, recommended that the views of the Town Council as listed in Appendix B be passed to the local planning authority for consideration. I move those.
So, remove the recommendation. Seconder. All in favour, please show. Thank you.
Right. So now we've got to present the minutes from the 14th of December.
Excuse me, Councillor Mann, I shall withdraw for this item as one of the applications relates to my own property.
Right, number 303, apologies for absence. 304, confirmation of minutes. 305, declarations of interest. 306, Dartmoor National Park. 307, town planning issues. 308, general correspondence. 309, neighbourhood development planning, and we do have a recommendation. Well, actually, we have a resolution there, but actually, is this not where I'm doing the appointment of Councillor Pearce to the neighbourhood plan group?
That's the next item, Councillor Mann.
Okay, thanks. But just so you know that there was a resolution that we would go ahead and get the parish online mapping subscription. The neighbourhood plan steering group requested this in order to assist us in that evidence gathering that we talked about earlier tonight. And if anybody would like to have a go at the software themselves, I'm quite happy to extend that to any of the councillors, because it is actually a council subscription, although it is for the steering group and it is going to be paid for from the steering group. There's no reason why, if you were interested in looking at the data and seeing what it can do, that you couldn't have a login yourself. So let me know if you would like that. 310, urgent business brought forward. 311, the planning decisions. A is the existing ones and B was the new ones, with the recommendation that the views of the Town Council as listed in Appendix B be passed to the local planning authority for consideration, and I move that recommendation.
Seconder, please. Yes, thank you. Those in favour, please.
Carried.
Right, and that's next meeting, so we just need the mayor back.
Okay, thank you, members. Moving on now to item 9, appointments. To consider the appointments of A, Deputy Mayor, and B, a council member of the Neighbourhood Development Plan Steering Group. Council previously determined that it wished to appoint a Deputy Mayor for the remainder of this civic year, and members were invited to express an interest. So the question is, Do we have any nominations, please, for the role of Deputy Mayor for the remainder of this civic year? Councillor Mrs Ewings.
I would like to nominate Councillor Andy Hutton, who stood last May and put himself forward then. When we had the meeting, he straight away said he would like to do it and carry on forth. I have spoken to him to establish whether he's going to stand again in May for re-election, because there's no point in electing somebody who might sit here and say, but I'm not going to stand in May. So we need to know that somebody is prepared to do that, and I have confirmed that with Councillor Hutton.
Thank you very much. Do we have a seconder, please? We have several seconders. Leslie. Thank you.
Yes, I'm happy to second Councillor Hudson. I think it's an excellent job as mayor last time around during lockdown. And yeah, I think he should be a really good deputy mayor again.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any other nominations, please? Councillor Squire.
I nominate Councillor Leslie Crawford as a potential Deputy Mayor.
Thank you.
I have spoken with her briefly in passing.
Councillor Crawford.
Thank you. I'm very flattered by the nomination, but I am not going to be standing again in April. And I did think it was a joke of being accosted me in market. So no, I have to turn that down. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other nominations? No? Okay. Under normal circumstances, we would have a ballot, but as there is only one candidate, are you willing to determine this by a show of hands, members?
Yes.
In which case, all in favour, please show.
Carried.
Congratulations, Councillor Hutton. Would you like to come and sit up here beside?
Thank you all very much. I hope you'll get behind the idea of trying to get the right diverse council. I know some people are leaving, don't tend to stand again anyway, so I think we need a really good diverse council. So everybody's got to really try and get a lot of new people and people who are interested, people who are keen. Let's have a good council after this year is finished. But we've still got a few months to go yet.
Okay, thanks. So 9B, Neighbourhood Development Plan Steering Group. My understanding is there is a vacancy for a third councillor. Is that correct, Councillor Mann?
Yes, I had advertised this, I think, several times in the various meetings, and Councillor Pearce very kindly has said that he would be interested, and so I'd like to nominate Councillor Pearce, or well, we already had nominated him as a steering group, and I just need to confirm his nomination and appointment through the council.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have a seconder for that, please? Yes, okay. And all in favour, please show.
Carried.
Excellent. Welcome aboard. Items circulated for information only. 10. Roman 1, General Manager's report to follow if available. My understanding is that we don't have a written report this time. Are you willing to take any questions if there are any?
Yes.
Yeah. Are there any questions for the General Manager, please? Moving on to the pannier market report. Any questions or comments? Councillor Mrs Ewing?
Has something been able to be done about the doors? I was conscious, and I was reading the report to start with and thought, we could drop a degree or two in the market to save on the old heating bills. But when I read further on, it seems to transpire that the automatic doors seem to open forever and all the heat goes out. So I'm not sure where we'd stand now on that one, and if the General Manager has got any ideas from the monthly readings he's been starting to take. I know there was an extremely cold spell at the beginning of December, and that might have been on their minds when they came to Councillor Squire's meeting, that it was really, really cold then, and that could have had, you know, a real difference to people's mindsets.
Any comments, General Manager?
Can you just clarify what your question was, please?
Are we able to do something with the doors to stop them letting all the heat out? but also have we been able to drop the temperature in the market by a degree or two, because it does get quite hot in there.
In relation to the heating system itself, the AmbiRads, they're probably only having about 2 blasts a day. So the market complex, the usage should be significantly lower than it normally is. In relation to the automatic doors, they do have a number of different settings. So it doesn't have to be on automatic. It can also be on the push pad element of it. So that's quite easy to change if we need to.
Thanks, Wayne.
Okay, thank you. 10 Roman 2 Pannier Market Report. We've done 10 Roman 3 Works Department Report. Councillor Hutton?
I would just like to say to the Works Department, I've had so many people have said how wonderful the lights have been this Christmas. And I think we should just recognise that they've been exceptional this year, whether it's new lights or just the way it's been done. But so many people, I had a lot of family down this year and everybody's commented they're magnificent.
Yeah.
So well done. I think the
Hear, hear.
thanks must be passed over.
Councillor Mann?
I just wanted to say that it's very understated in the report about how successful the Dickensian evening was, and I know that that was put a lot of pressure on the Works Department. So I thought they did an excellent job, and I know there were several calls for them to use their emergency protocols, so I think that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, Councillor Mrs Johnson?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I feel the Works Manager has been very patient in awaiting response from Devon County Council with regards to Ballawall Play Park and much needed repair to the culvert. I do think she is incredibly patient with it. I think it's about time we had a response from Devon County Council, and I don't know how we can put some pressure on to expedite this matter, because the culvert has recently been blocked and the area flooded once again. It does need sorting, and it needs sorting soonest, please.
Town Clerk, I think you wish to respond to that.
Yeah, I mean, just by way of context, and the General Manager may wish to add to it, I know the General Manager has been in touch with County Councillor Sellis today. The Works Manager has been in regular touch with County Council officers, and there is a report which will be coming to the next Budget and Policy Committee meeting, setting out the position for Council to consider, because we are particularly concerned that there seems to be a difference in understanding, given the fact that the current drainage system was put in at the request of the County Council, the Town Council seeking to assist it to discharge its duties in relation to the discharge of surface water drainage from the highway. And there seems to be a difference of view where they are suggesting that the Town Council should be undertaking works to facilitate their facility. Well, clearly, if there are works which are required for their facility, which has an easement on Town Council land, we're very happy to have a conversation with them about how they might undertake those works. But it is their facility for them to manage and maintain, and that is clearly the basis of the easement that we have with them. And it shouldn't be for us to be putting in place mitigation or attenuation works for measures which they did not anticipate when they installed it in the first place. So we will be bringing a report to you along those lines. I don't know if there's anything you wish to add.
Councillor Mrs Ewing?
Am I correct in thinking there's section 106 involved in this somewhere, isn't there? That once this work is done, that the improvements to the clay area is down to a 106? Am I correct in thinking that?
There is Section 106 money which has to be spent within the next, I think it's 18 months, in relation to the play part. So it's absolutely critical that access is maintained to the site as frequently as possible.
Yeah, I'm, acutely aware that the funding is due to run out, and as Councillor Mrs Johnson has pointed out, we've been waiting a very long time for answers on this, and the County Council have really got to get on with it. It's not that much for them to do, but by not doing it is precluding a lot happening for residents of that area with the play park, etc., from the site further up the road. So, thank you.
Thank you. 10 Roman 4 Town Hall and Butchers Hall reports.
The report is not as such, it's more notes of the last meeting which was held on the 6th of December. They are all before you. I won't propose to go into them in any detail, but very much it's an officers' meeting which my understanding as the chair is it went successfully, and I liaise with the respective markets almost daily, and the next meeting is the 10th of March, 15th of March, and again is open to members to attend. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Squires. I think there's a slight element of confusion, however, because the item I'm referring to under 10 Roman 4 is the officers' report, which we receive at each meeting of this full council.
Thank you. That's
and
a relief.
I think the document you're referring to is separate from that. Thank you. Right, so that gets us to 11, finance and other matters. Report of the Assistant to the Town Clerk, which is enclosed. Do we have any questions for the Assistant to the Town Clerk? And do you have anything you wish to add? Thank you. Now, Councillor Squire, this is where you come in. B, notes of the Town Hall and Markets Consultative Group held on the 6th of December.
I have very little more to add to my previous statement, so it is as it's before you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. C, to receive any update from or questions to council representatives serving on other outside bodies in connection with the work of those bodies. Do any members have anything to report, please? Councillor Squires.
I think as the remaining councillor advocate, my liaison with the police is not regular, but certainly well, regular rather than frequent. And it requires, as a council advocate, I attend various police meetings and endeavour to represent the council at those meetings. The next one is tomorrow in Exeter.
Okay,
half a day.
Anything else, members? Roman 2, feedback from members following their attendance at any training sessions. I'll simply say that I joined a virtual session on recruiting and retaining councillors, which I thought was very appropriate given where we are at the moment in relation to elections. And I'll share some of the lessons I learnt, if I learnt anything, with members of the Working Party when we meet. Does anyone else have anything to report? Councillor Mrs Ewings.
I don't know whether I should add, but I was also on the Personal Safety and Handling Online Abuse and Intimidation course, but I think it doesn't count because I did it through West Devon, but I was on the same course.
Okay. Item 12, to receive such communications or reports as may be submitted by the Town Mayor. I have nothing to communicate. And 13, urgent matters, and I have no urgent matters to bring before you. Which brings us to item 14. Move to part 2. Good night, thank you.